My last video, there were two questions. The one question was, what is knowledge? And the other question was, if I have knowledge of something and then say it to someone else, does that mean they have knowledge? I'm going to rephrase that question, but in the way that how I meant the question. So let's say, for example, I do have knowledge of something. And let's pretend that you don't already know what it is that I have knowledge of. So then if I just say it to you, right? If you don't understand what I'm talking about, and you don't know what I'm talking about, then are you going to have the knowledge that I have? And I think that kind of depends, right? Straightforward, right off the bat, if I just said something to you that you don't already have knowledge of or don't know, right off the bat, if I don't give explanation to help you understand what I'm talking about, then no, you're not going to have knowledge. That's an obvious. So I'll make an example then. Well, I hope for the sake of the example that you don't already know what I'm going to talk about. I'm going to say something, I'm going to give you knowledge. The Mohawk passed by Schenectady and curved by Crescent to meet with friends of Peeble Island. Now, if you don't already know what I'm talking about, and that's completely new to you, do you now have knowledge? No. I reckon you got maybe a bit of confusion and what's he talking about? So let me break it down then. So now if I wanted you to actually have the same knowledge that I had, then obviously I would have to give explanation. So here's the explanation. There's already information in that sentence that you already have. That is your pre-existing knowledge. Okay, so for example, the start of the sentence, the, is a word that you understand. And that word the is made up of individual letters, and each of those individual letters is also something that you understand. It's knowledge on top of knowledge, forming new knowledge. And when we have a huge database in our minds of all different words and knowing how to use them, then we can always reform and shape the knowledge that we have, and also gain new knowledge based on already what we have, and even new knowledge, using what we already have to make sense of new knowledge. So, Mohawk. When I said Mohawk, maybe some folks were thinking a Mohawk. Okay, fair enough. Schenectady, it sounds like connect and connectivity, right? But let's hang on that one for a minute, okay? And then past, we know, we have knowledge of the word past. It's either you passed by something, but it's also, we know that there's a past tense in it because of the ed at the end. And curved by Crescent. I'm just going to jump straight into saying what exactly it is I was actually saying. The Mohawk is a river in America that passes by Schenectady, which is a town in New York, and carries on, and it bends, it curves by Crescent, which is another town, and it meets with an island and moves around this island and maybe branches off, and the name of this island is Friends of Peeble Island State Park. Now that I've given an explanation and you're going, groovy, does that kind of mean that you might now have the same knowledge that I have? And I think it's also depending on your pre-existing knowledge that you already have. I'd say you have close to the same knowledge that I have. And there's a reason why, because even in that sentence, and I only hope for the sake of the example that you don't know what I'm talking about already, or you don't know how already. And if you do, big thumbs up. But there is still a little bit of, there's an area of confusion still, waiting to be understood. Can you spell Schenectady? And that brings me to the next point, the question of the video, which was, what is knowledge? I got some really cool feedback, right? you got to go have a look, and put links that correlates to the feedback that I got, because someone gave me some information on different types of knowledge and how it reforms. And in some way, I hope I kind of made a good example right now. You get different types of knowledge. You get knowledge of conviction, which is, you can see it, you can touch it, so it's real. You know that that is there, right? You know it. It's absolute knowledge. You get knowledge which is, stuff that makes sense. But even if stuff that makes sense, are you going to have accurate knowledge, or are you going to have actual knowledge? That's now depending, that's debatable, and there's even discussions about that, and you can follow the links. Then, you get knowledge, and there's different labels in philosophy study. There's labels priori and posteriori. Priori meaning of the earlier, and posteriori of the later. And knowledge of experience. And I think a lot of people will actually most likely say, oh, knowledge is experience, and I think, okay, that's a really groovy kind of feedback. But now, yeah, I've got a cool idea. If you're a child, and before you could even read or write, you know how to say words, and you know how to start communicating with your mom and your dad, and through experience, then you got these words and knowing how to do these sounds to make these words. So that's experience, so that's knowing. Okay, that makes sense to me, but go back a little bit further. A baby, through experience, knows to make this noise, for food, or for attention and love, or a clean bum. But the thing is now, the baby doesn't even have concept of language, but is some kind of thought happening, and somehow that baby just knows. And then we can go back and say, okay, that's experience, fair enough. Go back into the womb, exactly the same thing. You open your eyes there in the womb for the first time, and you start looking at your hands, and somehow you realize, and in your mind, I am doing that, and I'm saying these words, but that little baby in the womb that doesn't even know these words. So what is it thinking when it's realizing that? And again, that's also just knowing, and we can say it's experience. So let's go all the way back there. But try to imagine going all the way back to that very first moment of your very being, where there was that very first spark of knowing and understanding. The very first time it happened. Before that was their experience. We can have a longer conversation about this. I'm going to leave it over there. I want to leave it, thinking, wondering. My question still remains, what is knowledge then? Like some of the comments, there is some information, but to me, I've got to say that is all still just knowledge, kind of broken up into different types of knowledge and how you gain knowledge, and it's categorized, but it doesn't answer the fundamental question from the first video, which is, what is it? The only idea that I have, and that's now knowledge to me that just makes sense to me, it's an uneducated guess without any fact. So I leave it just for you to think about, and I challenge you to go think about it and share even more information with me. And I say that plausibly, knowledge could very well just be information that you understand. And information in some way is also little bits of knowledge though. But the thing is about information is something coming from the outside world, touching on your receptors, vibration, and then being translated somehow in your brain. And then in your mind, you are aware of something. And eventually that something is some form of knowledge. So where in the mind and where in the brain can you point to actual something and say that that represents what knowledge is? Just think about it. Let me know what you think. Cheers.